What have I done? What have I become? I can't describe this. This is my mid-mic crisis.
Hello and welcome to the Mid-Mic Crisis. I am Bunchu alongside my esteemed colleague and co-host, Chamber. Chamber, how you doing, buddy?
Not too bad. How are things in the future? Based on
we're about to see the future today, I think, my friend, and I'm very excited for this. I it's kind of like the combination of all the stuff I've been talking about for the last, I don't know, 6-8 months that you've had to insufferably listen to me talk about AI, and we're going to talk.
I'm just happy to have friends, to be honest.
Yeah, well, we're me too. Right back at you, buddy. So we are going to talk all about autonomous agents today. This is the stuff that is almost surreal feeling when you see it. And we're going to have a really nice, deep discussion about it. We have a very special guest today. We're going to see some demos of a couple of these tools in action, and I'm very excited to get to it. Chamber, before we bring in our guest, tell me what you know about autonomous agents.
I didn't even know that's how you pronounce autonomous.
Okay, then there we go.
No, I mean, I don't know much. I feel like I'm going to learn a lot. Just being around you, a little bit of AI rubs off on me, and I regurgitate that into the world, and people think I'm a genius. So we're gonna actually have somebody that really knows, like a next. Would you say Eric's a level above you in regards to?
I would say that Eric is probably 10 levels above most, is how I would describe it from my conversation with him. So just a little backstory. I was on Coffee with Captain a couple weeks ago. We started talking about AI on my AI segment that I do with them. And we had like an hour and a half long conversation about agents. These guys reached out to me to have a chat, just to talk about kind of agents and their product and all of that stuff. It was supposed to be a 45-minute call. It ended up being 2.5 hours long. And I left that call totally kind of mind blown that the future was here. And here we are. We're going to be talking to Eric in just a second. So are you ready, Chamber?
I can't be more ready than I currently am.
Awesome. So let's bring him in. We are bringing in our very special guest today. His name, Eric B. Delisle. He is the founder of Bloomstack and creator of the AI Mystic platform. Eric, welcome. How are you today?
I'm doing absolutely fabulous. Joe, how are you doing?
Wonderful. It is so great for you to join us today. Thank you so much for your time. I'm super excited about this conversation, and I'm really mostly interested and really excited to educate folks who may not understand kind of what autonomous agents are, what is the, I guess, potential for this technology, and kind of like how far away it is. And I think people are going to understand after this that it's closer than you may think. So let's get right into it. First question for you, Eric. Just tell us a little bit about your background. When I was on the phone with you the other day, I was super fascinated just about your history of your interest in this space and computing across your life. So tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to kind of where we are today.
Sure thing. I gotta have to live up to this bar that you set though at the beginning of this. I was listening. I was like, damn, I want to meet me.
You're like, who's that guy they're going to talk to?
What the hell is he talking about?
Sam Altman's guru is.
That's right. That's awesome. I've mostly been an entrepreneur for a really long time, for about 35 plus years, mostly in tech. So, I would describe myself as somebody who's just crazy curious. I mean, I just I'm just a geek that way, I guess. But yeah, kind of started out. My first real tech venture was in all the way back in 1993. I put the first virtual reality systems in at Disney's MGM Studios, used to be called MGM Studios, here in Orlando, Florida back then. And and this particular story is, it's the bane and boon of my life, which is, they say, it's interesting to be a visionary, but sometimes you get the timing off. So 1993, man, I was just convinced this is it. Virtual worlds, and people are going to be walking around in all these virtual spaces. And, and I remember a few years ago when all the Web3 craze started and stuff. And I was like, wow, really? Like, finally, people are talking about it. And we're still not there yet. So I hope.
I was going to say that was like our early moment. That was like, we were, when I got into Web3 in 2017, that's how I felt. And it's still, 7 years later, and we're still not totally there, but I can totally relate.
Yeah. So anyway, I've done a bunch of tech stuff over the years, did the .com boom thing out west, building automated platforms like a Wix or a Foursquare today. We had built a system like that in 1998. So I've just kind of been at this for a long time. To the my interest, even back then, was I was really fascinated by expert systems and, what eventually was the NLP stuff, natural language processing. Even stuff like, when Dragon Naturally Speaking came out, back in the 90s, this was just fascinating that, you could talk and the words would appear on the screen instead of typing them, And interestingly, the guy that did that work was, I think you and I had talked about it, Ray Kurzweil, amazing futurist, kind of, probably one of the most amazing futurists of our time, certainly. And anyway, back then, I was interested in the work of like Dr. Stephen Thaler and this imagination engine that he had built in 1998, 1999. But the state of the art of technology at the time, it really took us until just the last few years when the computers were strong enough, the cloud infrastructure was strong enough, and frankly, the scientists, like the people at Google that put out the attention is all you need paper, with transformers, really allowed some of this magic that we're seeing emerge from these systems. So that brings us up to kind of the current modern day. Bloomstack actually was started as a cannabis software company.
It's funny you say that, because I actually work in the cannabis industry here in Canada.
Yeah.
And when I was looking up Bloomstack, I'm like, what am I seeing here?
Is this the right thing?
What is happening right now? So yes, I'm very interested to hear a little bit more about that.
Well, I had I told you that I had built these systems way back in the 90s and early 2000s, and fast forward to 2018, a dear friend of mine in California was starting a new venture. I'll just put it that way, and he had gotten together with some people, and they were putting in a pretty big implementation under the new laws and stuff out of California. And I'll never forget, I was in California talking to him. He showed me what they were working on, and I was blown away. But this is like one of my best friends from high school. It's a bro, like I know him.
Yeah.
And I know he doesn't know shit about software. He doesn't know nothing about compliance. He doesn't know nothing about those things. But and so I'm asking him, like, man, what are you doing to handle the legal compliance you have to do with this new metric software?
Legal what?
Yeah. And he's like, I was like, man. And then I realized, like, at that moment, I was like, shit, this is the visionary thing, right? I'm like, oh my God, there's going to be thousands and thousands of people like my buddy. who's kind of moving from the gray market to the, white
Mhm.
market. And so that's what kicked off. I was like, man, I should build the system for the legal cannabis operators. So we did. And we were just going to market. We had signed up some big clients like Humboldt Farms, and we had some marquee.
That's a big. I would definitely call that a big client.
Yeah. And then COVID hit, and it changed a whole lot of crap for a lot of people, and me included. So suddenly, I was working on launching this thing in the middle of COVID. The whole world had shut down. And to finish up my story, about 2.5 years ago, I kind of saw the writing on the wall, and I was like, man, this old way that we've been building software for a long time has got to change. And we had been working on a new framework, a no code kind of, build an application, with boxes and stuff instead of having to be a developer, so that we could rapidly change the features in our platform, which was huge. I mean, this thing did accounting, and it did enterprise resource planning, and it did manufacturing resource planning and logistics, and ran your website and did your compliance with the state, and on and on and on. And a big system like that, coding it the old way we had a lot of technical debt, as they call it. So I made a very tough decision, and it was to change the entire course of the company and put all my chips on this new framework that we had been building, because I kind of thought that was the future of automated code generation. And I got lucky, frankly, because as we were building it, we were using really advanced tools to do this. And this is, now we're into 2021, I think, 2021, 2022. And GPT-3 had come out, and it was so much better than 2. And for the first time, it actually looked like this thing you could give it enough information about these blocks that we had, and it could maybe properly piece them together. And it couldn't exactly, but it got close. And so we got super excited. We were like, wait a second, this is the direction. We could have a totally new way of building software. And so that's kind of how it all started. And then about 1.5 years ago, we had the beginnings of our Greenhouse, the platform that we built. We call it an AI programmable application framework. So we took a different approach than what these guys are doing at like Cognition with Devin, or Cursor AI, or Continue, or what was the one that just blew up, Pair or something, with the fork of Continue. So we were taking a bit of a different approach, where we thought that to build really complex full stack apps, the reasoning part that a senior software engineer goes through, these systems aren't quite there yet, and they probably still won't be for a little while, maybe a year or two. So we were like, well, we have a framework now, let's build a application on it to prove that we can, and that's what became AI Mystic.
So that's super interesting.
So it's kind of like an invention, and then we invented a new invention with our own invention. Which, by the way, is the goal. So the goal is that the agents, the autonomous agents that we're going to talk about today, can actually improve their environment that they are rendered in. So they can actually build their own brain, or they can build their own software, because the underlying framework that they're built on is accessible to them, like live. Yeah. Oh,
I feel like I'm not ready for this conversation.
No, I don't think you are, Chamber, and that's what I'm telling you, man. Like I'm telling you, you're not ready for it. It's like, I mean, think about what Eric just said. It's systems that he built specifically, to kind of develop something easily and quickly.
Yes.
And then now you're adding all of these advancements on top of it that now allow it to be essentially recursive, collaborative within itself, and kind of build and iterate on its own
and
stack,
self-improve.
Right? And self-improve. And so like, this is what a couple weeks ago, Chamber, when we were talking about, all of the Project Strawberry stuff and the O1 models and Orion and all of that stuff, like that's what they were talking about in those papers, which was like the synthetic data piece that allow it to train itself and things of that nature. Like that recursive building itself type of thing is what we're talking about here, not only with AI Mystic, but just like kind of agents in general. So,
okay, you bring up a good point though. That was what they released with O1 was the obvious progression of where this has to go. Because if listen, when you get on ChatGPT, what a lot of your listeners or definitely Chamber has already proclaimed he's not a data scientist. So when you're using ChatGPT, Chamber, the thing that you've used it, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So the thing that you're in there typing to or now talking to, it's all smoke and mirrors.
I actually Bunch brought this up to my attention the other day. I didn't realize that. I thought it was doing this in the time that it was giving me information.
Yeah, they feel like they're doing what we do.
Correct.
As humans, but now we have to define them. Because what we're really talking about, like the agents in AI Mystic, is there's the model that everybody talks about, the Llama, the GPT, the Gemini, the Copilot, the Claude, whatever. There's the model, but there is not any model that is being popularly used right now that is more than a zero-shot model, which means a chunk of text gets sent to it, and then it provides a response. That's it. There's nothing else. It has no memory. It can't, it doesn't know anything about the environment that it's in. None of that exists to the model.
Right.
But they built an application like we did. Their application is called ChatGPT.
And that's what's remembering.
That's what remembers. And it literally works like a WhatsApp.
Right.
So you type a message in it, and then there's a message is stored in a database somewhere. And then they take those messages, meaning the people that built the application or OpenAI, and in their application, ChatGPT, they take a bunch of these messages, say the previous however many, let's call it the last 10 messages, and they add it behind the one that you just typed. And then they send a special prompt off to their model, and they say, hey, you're a helpful agent. You're in a chat, and the chat looks like this. You've been talking to Chamber. Chamber, provided the last message.
Chamber's asking about Bigfoot again.
Again. What's up with this guy?
So that's how it works, but most people don't realize that that's what's going on.
Interesting.
Okay, so I think that's a really great
one too, by the way.
Yeah, and that's a great explanation from just like what's actually happening behind the ChatGPT that people are using. What's kind of like the implication from like behind what you just described to kind of what people now see with O1 and what we're about to see with kind of like how you've built AI Mystic in terms of what makes this new framework special compared to that, I guess, is what my question is.
Well, I mean, that's a tiny question with a huge answer, but I'll give you the highlights. I'll try not to get too super technical, because some of it, frankly, is just really technical. Like when we get into why are we using finite state machines for their brains, it's like, okay, we probably don't want to get into math and
right.
Haley machines and more machines and all this kind of stuff. But what I will say is that the purpose of the agentic application, which is basically what, ChatGPT is basically like a super chatbot, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what it is. So they're building that application in a particular way, and they're building it to be a really awesome, kind of generalist helper. That's what it's supposed to do. Then as they were building that, they realized that people wanted to do things outside of the way that the basic app works. So this all came, as people started to learn about prompting, for example. So prompting is just the input that you put in that goes to the model. That's all. But we started calling it prompting, and then all of a sudden there's prompt engineering and prompt engineering school, and prompt engineers getting paid crazy money for like what? And it's valuable because you can change the outcome, the output of the model, the GPT model, or any other model, based on what the input that you give it. But all of a sudden, as people wanted to make their own inputs to get it to act and do a certain thing, they were restricted by the application ChatGPT. And this is why OpenAI immediately started working on some user experience stuff by releasing the GPTs feature, right, where you could kind of create a version of ChatGPT, and you could tell it, I need you to be a dentist. I need you to act like an attorney. I need you to, and you could do that with ChatGPT. It's just that it would lose itself after so many messages. If you've ever experienced this, it kind of like, I have, forgets, and so then that's actually why they added memories, so they added this memories infrastructure going on. They already had a quasi memory, but it was more like RAM. It was just previous messages, right?
Right.
Now the memories feature, they actually are creating memories that are entries in a vector database, so that they can be pulled up later.
Is this what they're is this what they're gathering at 3 Mile Island now?
Yeah. They're sending
it's all my memories
to nuclear power. Yeah.
All my memories, exactly.
That's funny. So
and as they build these systems, so what they're doing is they're building the chassis and the wheels and the brakes and the windshield wipers and the audio system. They're building it around the engine because they built an engine first.
Right.
And so now they're wrapping this car around it, and they're kind of giving you a handful of choices that you can make about the car. You can't change it really fundamentally, but you can change some things about it, and that would be a GPT, or kind of using it in the playground and doing some of those things.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay. So one more question before we get into AI Mystic and see it in action. Okay, so I think we've got a really good basic explanation of kind of how you're
way more from Eric than I have from you, Bunch. Just
well, look, he's just very good.
You were right. He is 10 levels.
I told you. I'm like GPT-2 and Eric is AGI. So
I'm like a Commodore 64.
Yeah, right. You're 3 Mile Island.
I sure am.
So we've got a really nice, I think, base understanding of how the model level works now, and then what it means to kind of go to ChatGPT as in like an application layer, and what's happening there with memory and prompting and all of that. And now I guess right before we get into a demo here and you can explain AI Mystic, talk about the process of the thinking that is now kind of what we're seeing with these new O1 models and kind of this chain of thought type of thing, because I think those three things will lead us really nicely into what we're about to see.
Yeah, I mean, so as we said, the whole application is what provides the smoke and mirrors part, right? So you feel like you're talking to somebody, right, or something, depending on how you come down on it. But this prompting, going back to this whole prompting, universe and the study of prompting, all of a sudden there was all this series of things that came out about how you could get better results out of the zero shot thing that you sent off to the model. And as their context grew, as they basically had more that they could process in each one shot, researchers realized that, these things can actually kind of hold these concepts in a large enough context. And this became things like, chain of thought was one. Then there was tree of thought, which is kind of a branched logic of the simple chain thing. And there were entire projects that came out to try and help this in applications like a LangChain. Their early stuff was all about this, concatenating or putting together a series of round trips to the model. And in this chain of thought concept, you could get something that looked a hell of a lot like planning. And you could get it to do things in a stepwise manner that it wouldn't naturally do on its own without a prompt that told it how to do that. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So now, by the way, I just read a paper a couple days ago. I did a post about it on LinkedIn about logic of thought. So a whole nother kind of concept that they're using now. And then there is in model things like a mix of experts, where they put together multiple of these layers in the convolutional neural network, and you could have 1,000 layers that all get the same problem, and then they all spit out their statistical result is what happens in this mix of experts. And then of the 1,000, maybe you get 742 all have a similar result. And then of the remaining 200 and whatever, it's split up among 5 other possibilities. And what you do is you say, wait a second, well, most of the models said this should be the answer. So they picked that one, and then the whole system seems smarter somehow. So anyway, a combination of these things comes together in what is the 01 release. By the way, you'll notice they took the GPT name off of it.
Yeah.
And they just called it 01. And because it's not a model in and of itself, they put stuff around the model, which allowed it to have this chain of thought recursive thing. So what happens is, without the user seeing it, the prompt that you generate creates an intent. So it's what is the user's intent? I want to write a blog post. I want to design a business plan. Okay, as soon as that intent is stated, there's a lot of shit that goes into that, right? So what they've done is they take your intent. They can use a model to say, hey, what's this intent about? Is it something simple? Because if it's simple, we can just answer them. We don't need to go through this 01 chain of thought process. For example, if your intent was through a question, what's the capital of Florida? It doesn't need to go through anything. It knows what your intent is, which is to have that information sent back to you. And so it just says the capital of Florida is Tallahassee. And there you go. You're moving on. But if you said, I want to design a business plan, oh boy, there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into that if ChatGPT is going to help you with it. So it goes off in this loop of saying, okay, first thing, what's his intent? Wants to write a business plan. Second thing, can you just say the business plan to him? No. Okay, what do we need to do to say the business plan? Well, we need to write a business plan. Okay, well, can you just do that with what you know now? No. Okay, what questions do you need to write a business plan? Whatever it is, whatever their process is, they're building all of that first. And you're just not seeing it happen. But we did this exact thing that I'm describing, a year and a half ago, once we started building out AI Mystic. So we were doing that directly through the GPT APIs. And then, of course, we use a bunch of them. We use Google and Anthropic and Perplexity and a bunch. So our platform actually does all of that work behind the scenes. Now, it's turned into something very complex and very sophisticated. And we actually call it our left brain as part of
Yeah, I think this is the part where we should definitely jump into it and see it in action and describe it. So if you want to share your screen, you can hit the little present in the middle down there and bring up whatever screen you want, and we'll add it to the display here, and then you'll have kind of free reign to go into whatever you want.
All right. Oh, actually, this is great because it gives me an option of sharing a separate screen. Let me rotate a little bit so I don't look like I'm completely looking inside. All right. Let's see how this works. Present. Screen. Share.
Now we're going to get into the exciting stuff, Chamber. You got your AI, tech lesson at the top. So now you know kind of what's going on when you sufficiently get your mind blown here in a couple minutes. So I'm wondering, Chamber, should we go like?
Tell me when this is like big enough to read.
Yeah, we can see it.
It need to be a little bit bigger.
There you go. That's better.
Is that better? Okay. All right.
Okay. So now we are in kind of the AI Mystic interface. Describe kind of, what the goal is here, what it should look like.
Which one's better, dark mode or light mode?
Actually, probably.
I was going to say we're a dark mode family.
All right. We'll stick with dark mode. Okay. All right. So let me give you a quick tour of the application. Basically, on the left-hand side, we have a menu. On the right-hand side, there will be a controls menu when you're in a workspace. Otherwise, it just doesn't appear. This particular tab is just our changelog tab, so it shows all of the versions that we've been building.
How many versions are you up to?
116 currently. Now, by the way, here's a very interesting. It's a secret, but it won't be a big secret after being on this. This is my first podcast talking about this. This is the first time anybody's actually heard about this.
This is how cutting edge this show is. Yeah. This is weird.
But this entire application, this whole thing was built by one software engineer over this last year and a half. And the stuff that you're going to see, and the reason he was able to do it is because of the framework that we built before he built an application on the framework. So, to be able to jack out 116 versions with one software engineer building a ridiculously complex system, it's a tribute to Greenhouse, to the platform that's actually driving it all. But anyway, so what you're looking at is a bunch of tabs for workspaces. So here's the workspace, menu. And what a workspace is it's just literally a place to do work. It's not terribly inventive. You can click the plus button and you can create a workspace mid-mic crisis. And we could say, we want to test out AI Mystic for the podcast audience. Okay, so now we have an empty workspace. Okay, now workspace doesn't really help us a lot unless we have either people in here to talk about things or agents. So here's our agents. So there can be unlimited agents, but let me talk about this for a second because I think the whole topic of this thing was autonomous agents. So, and I don't think we addressed it well, but now we're going to. So an agent is, again, smoke and mirrors. It's this construct. You could call it a chat bot. You could call it a robot, you could call it a AI, you can call it anything that you want, but it's got parts, that make it up and make it specifically different from a large language model. In this case, you can see the configurations of AI Bud. We give them a name, give them a little avatar. Those have nothing to do with the model, but we can give them a model too. And we can just choose any model, that we have available. And in this case, I have them set to Anthropic's Claude 3.5 Sonnet. We can give them a little description. In this case, I've told them, told this agent kind of who he is. By the way, this description is also available to the other agents. So when the other agents get in a room with another agent, they could see, who's this guy. Then there's an entire agent settings thing. Now this is similar to what you have with GPTs. So in OpenAI, you can create a GPT. You can give it some instructions that basically live with it for as long as you have that GPT. And here I can give it a little greeting. And then we can do all these agent details. So this is where you can get super interesting with these things. Are you guys familiar with Silly Tavern?
No.
Silly Tavern. Okay. Character AI. You know that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a whole kind of thing out there of creating characters based on these large language models. And Silly Tavern is kind of like it's like a game. You can go in and create these, and you can play with AIs, and AIs can kind of play with each other in this environment. So we actually use some similar concepts here, where the idea is that you may want to get really specific about an agent, and it could have goals, it could have mannerisms, it could have secrets, it could have all different kinds of things, or you can make shit up. You can say we can give it some kind of a chamber fetish. I don't know.
I have one of those.
There's a niche.
It doesn't work out really.
Like ice cream. Hint, hint.
I mean, so a really quick example for our audience. If you listen to the Mid-Mic Daily Bite, which is our AI generated 5-minute podcast every day in our voices, I had to do this without something like this. I had to figure out how to basically prompt for all of these things. And so this was step one, Chamber, of like, oh shit, this could have been really helpful.
When you DM'd me and you're like, write me I don't know, I forget what it was, like 500-word essay on yourself for the prompting. And I'm like, there was a lot of soul searching in that essay, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
That's funny.
I just copied yours for mine. So
and this is the whole idea, by the way. I mean, you guys, it's fun chatting with you, because you just make it obvious that you could do this kind of work, like detailed work, or if you're lucky enough to have a system that could do the work for you, wouldn't that be better?
Yes.
And so that's one of the first examples I'll give you. So we're on agents. We're getting ready to build up this mid-mic crisis room. But let's say that, all the agents that are here, they don't suit our needs. There is a guy in here, though. I think his name is Rohan. Yeah. Rohan is a highly skilled, experienced podcast producer from Mumbai, India. Okay. So, but you can see this agent is, Amit. Yeah. Amit is created by me. He's a copy of that other agent, wherever he was. So when you pick an agent that was created by Bloomstack, like Angel here, you can't change her, but you can clone her. You can make a copy of her. And then then it's your copy of that agent. You can do it.
And you can change that one.
Correct. Exactly. And that just allows us to have system agents that survive whatever the hell anybody does, and a library of those. And then if you want to jump off of it, then you can say, oh, I want to tweak it to my needs. But the thing that I wanted to show you is completely different. I want to show you this. And let me point out another feature here. So the system is capable of speech to text right now.
Okay.
And it's also capable of text to speech, but we don't have that turned on. So this is only going to be a one-way conversation. But this way, if I'm not a good typist, I can just talk to AI Mystic. I don't necessarily have to do anything. But why I pointed that out is there's no difference in the way that we're doing this than what if you have the OpenAI, the ChatGPT app on your phone, how you could just talk to it and everybody's making all these cool videos of it, they're talking. It's only doing this. It's taking a voice, it's converting it to text, it's sending it to the model as if you had typed it. And then whatever its response is, instead of it typing it out to you, it just converts it from text to speech. So we do the exact same thing. And frankly, we use everybody's models to do it, whether it's DeepGram or OpenAI or, Whisper or their new one now with they have some new ones that have just come out. So anyway, let me do this real quick. Let's say, hey, buddy, do me a favor and let's create a podcast producer agent for mid-mic crisis. And let's use Amit, the AI Mystic agent, as an example of the kind of agent that we need. But let's call this one Chamber.
This guy knows how to get cut right to the chase, right to your heart, Chamber.
Just tickling under my chin right now, just like a good boy.
Good boy, Chamber. Good boy. Now, by the way, what's happening is in the background, all this stuff is going on. And here, you see the speaking controls just lit up? And it shows that AI Bud is prompted to speak. There was a hallucination event that happened before that. I don't know if you guys caught it. But it self-recovered from a hallucination.
Interesting.
So now what it's actually doing is it went through this whole left brain process that we were talking about. It had all these thoughts about what Eric asked for. And then it realized that it needed to do a number of things for that to happen. One of the things it needed to do was get Amit's configurations. So if we look at Amit, it's got all these configurations, a description, it's got all his instructions, greeting, all this stuff, facts about him, and then even his AI tuning settings. So what you can see is this little bar says 3 actions succeeded. And what's happened is within here, the agent was doing work. So the agent first had to find another agent. In this case, it found Amit. It tried to do something and it presented invalid arguments to the tool. So luckily it recovered from it by, the system basically shared with it, not unlike the way that like Devin works, where it can get an error sent back to it so it can figure out how to recover from it autonomously. So this is my first use of that word with respect to our agents. That is an example of an autonomous agent, what you just saw. So it didn't come back to me and say, Eric, how do I find an agent? It didn't come back to me and say, Eric, I'm going to look this up and how do I create another agent? It didn't do any of that stuff. Instead, it just did it autonomously. Now, maybe that's not good, by the way, right? Maybe that's it.
Like existentially good?
No.
Oh,
I mean, maybe for me, the human user, maybe I wanted it to.
Maybe you got the British band Mid-Mic Crisis and not the podcast.
Yeah. Possibly.
Common error.
Yeah.
So there are ways of dealing with that, and that's what these speaking controls are. So you can literally grab the agents and put them in different orders. depending on what the left brain has decided. So the left brain is this mystical brain that we have that's built into AI Mystic. And the new one that's coming out this week actually has, I think, 18 total inference points. An inference point is a place as it's processing where it could be using a model. It doesn't have to be a large language model, but it could be using a model to do something. So imagine combining, 18 different models, all built with a method of doing it so that they don't, if they hallucinate, we catch it before it causes more trouble. That makes sense?
Totally.
So while this is happening, what happened was the room, the brain gets this message first, this prompt, right? And then what it does is it says, okay, based on this is a long ass conversation in this room that's been going on for a really long time. I mean, I've been building stuff in this room for months and months and months. Okay. So 2 months right now, I guess, is how far that goes back. But these guys never lose memory or context on AI Mystic. And it doesn't matter which model is running the agent, because it's the agent's brain, not the model's brain. We just use the model for what it's good at. Everything else we take care of. That makes sense?
Totally.
Yes.
So
including doing this. So let me close this so you guys can see this as clearly as possible. So remember we talked about a prompt, right? In ChatGPT, if I sent that prompt, what the hell is it going to do with it? Nothing.
Yeah.
But if I wanted to get all of this work done, I probably would have had to write a bigger prompt, right?
Totally. 100%. You would have had to give it context about the show, context about what a producer does, context about all of that stuff. Yes.
Here, look at all this. This is part, I want to emphasize, only part of the prompt that was generated by AI Mystic, including all of these messages and system messages that happened up to this point.
Which took like a minute.
Yeah, so that the model could produce valid YAML spit back out, because we need it as a specific object, Then we parse that object and we do things with it with the application. And then what we did with it was we allowed the system to basically build an entire mini application is what happened here. Wait, wrong one. I'll turn the debug off. Okay. And then it recursively and autonomously went through all of the tasks that it was supposed to do. Got it?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not unlike what O1 does, except O1 can't really execute. It can only plan, mostly, and it'll do more soon. Well, I shouldn't say that. It executes now. It actually can execute using APIs and tools that are available to it. So, but the other thing that's very unique about what we're doing at AI Mystic, to answer your earlier question, Joe, was this model was built, the one that's running AI Bud, was built by Anthropic. They spent, billions of dollars, right, to build this model. They have no interest in letting OpenAI, where they left, come play with GPT in their playground. They got their own things. They're working on their own stuff, and they're trying to have their own best foundation model. The same thing is true for Google. They have no interest in, letting Anthropic bring Claude into the Google platform and play with Gemini. But here in an AI Mystic workspace, they all play together. And they do that through the AI Mystic brain that helps orchestrate all of it. So we're doing the heavy lifting behind the scenes of whether it's doing the summaries, whether it's creating synthetic memory pairs and embedding them and storing them so that things can be remembered later on, whether it's providing a infinite tool search capacity where they can do their own searches for tools that are available or skills that are available to accomplish whatever the intent is at the time. And then there's all kinds of subsystems like our task system. So here you can see there's one task in it, this look into Traction.io, investigate and research Traction.io for potential use and implementation. Okay, great. This one looks like it's assigned to me. It's open currently, could be active or closed. Chamber, you ever work with a task manager?
Yeah.
So
I'm somewhat
the same
manager.
Yeah, I've been working with them for 6 years.
I'm somewhat of a task manager.
There you go. So they all work the same. You give it a title, you give it a description, you assign it to people, and then you change it over time if something happens with it, right? But I don't know if you guys are like me, but I've been playing with software for a really long time, and I'm a little like, I'm sick of filling out forms, and I'm sick of navigating menus, and I'm sick of clicking buttons. So we thought, man, wouldn't it be better if the future, which is what I think everybody wants now out of these agents, if I could just talk to them and they could do all of it for me, right? So we could do things like this. Hey, buddy, that looks really great. Thanks for putting that together. Let's do something else. I want to test the new agent chamber. And I think to do it, I'd like to create a series of tests. Let's say we'll do 3 different tests. I want you to come up with the tests and make them all tasks, and we'll accomplish them one at a time. But create each one of the tasks right here in AI Mystic for me, please.
This is wild.
I told you, man.
So now this is an example of where, what I'm saying about by the way, while he's doing this, we can look up, there should be a chamber. Oh, here he is.
There he is.
There he is right there.
By the way,
I noticed. Turns out.
Nice.
Yeah.
I've always thought I was.
Yeah.
And it actually knew about our show. It says that it's a tech, it was a tech podcast, etc.
Yeah,
which means it went out and did a search.
That's right, because they're all capable of accessing the internet. By the way, and every agent is capable of accessing. And while we're talking, by the way, I'm not even paying attention. But if you notice, they're already all created.
Now, could it have assigned?
All the detail is in here.
Could it have assigned them to Chamber?
Yeah, absolutely. But Chamber isn't in the room. So let me bring Chamber in the room. Actually, before I do, let's give Chamber an avatar. I always like there to be an avatar.
Oh, God, you got to make it a Bigfoot.
Yeah. All right. Wow, this looks great, buddy. I need you to do me one more favor, and that is I need an avatar for Chamber. But Chamber is a really cool guy, and he loves Bigfoot. So if you could, let's make him kind of interesting and maybe an homage to Bigfoot, or look like Bigfoot a little bit. Give it a shot.
While it's doing that, the implication of the tasks, not only from it being able to create tasks, but then assign them to either yourself or another agent, I think is really important to touch on, because it basically means, like you said before, these things are in a finite state, meaning it's essentially always on, meaning you can schedule things in that way, as in check my email and give me a summary every morning at 8 a.m. Or, hey, make sure I, tweet at this time today, and by the way, do it for me, or assign Chamber to go do research on tonight's NFL game at 4:00. And that means like you can be running these things,
or help Chamber with the research and get his feedback.
Yes.
After you've done most of the grunt work.
Yeah.
Oh, that looks like it.
There you go.
There's a similarity there. There's a similarity.
Yeah, definitely is.
I kind of like that. Okay. All right, let me do this real quick. We'll call him Chamber.
I was briefly looking at the tasks, and the tasks are almost what I'm dealing with. I was working with ChatGPT earlier today, and they almost mirror some of the things that I was working on, which is
really
wild.
That's crazy, actually.
Let me add Chamber here. Okay, so now Chamber is updated. You're going to be using GPT-4 Omni.
All right.
And we'll let's bring you into the room. Let's see. So Chamber, here we go. Add Chamber to the room.
So now just by adding it, it will know to do the tasks.
Look,
this is crazy.
Yep, there you are.
So now what happens is they immediately come in, they say something, and any of the other agents can respond.
Really?
So now I can do stuff like this. I could say, hey, buddy, now we have Chamber in the room, but before we get started with the tests, can you assign each of those tasks to Chamber, please? Now, what we should see. Oh, wait, did he already do it?
Oh, he already did it. Wow.
Oh, shit.
That's a hashtag emergent property. I think we just saw.
Oh, no, those are not. Those were. Wait, was that Chamber?
It looks like them.
Oh, shit. Oh, it is. Yeah, damn. Okay, never mind. He already did it. All right, cool. So by the way, look, this gives me a great opportunity. I can just hit this stop button, and that it stopped the entire brain. So immediately I can even interrupt these things, and you're gonna love this. I can delete a message. I can edit the message too if I want. So depending on what's going on with the workspace, if there's things that are happening, they go off the rails, you really don't want that, you can either delete entire messages or entire groups of messages. And you can also specifically edit messages, because sometimes that's really useful when you're working with an agent. Because remember, they're just statistical models. Their goal is to figure out which token statistically should be the next one that comes out based on all the permutations and combinations, right? Well, if I edit Chamber's response and make it say something, the next time that Chamber is prompted, he's going to think he said it that way. Make sense?
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
And it allows you to steer these models really, really precisely, which is really cool.
Interesting.
By the way, we use this technique in the brain. So this is one of the techniques that we use in the thinking brain. We just do it for you in the same way that we write these, really awesome, prompts that are going on in the background. We'll do that too. We'll actually help steer the models that way. Okay. So anyway, now we have a bunch of tasks, and we could be doing these, going through them, whatever. But we only have a few minutes left, so I think we're already done, aren't we?
Technically, yes, but we can wrap up. We can wrap up in a couple minutes. Chamber, right. If you have to run, I can close it down. Don't worry.
All right. Well, let me just give you a couple other ideas or things that you can look forward to as we build this out. The entire platform, we have an entire integration platform. So, adding outside services as tools is relatively straightforward. We have the this finite state machine technology that I was telling you about is, in fact, AutoGen uses it from Microsoft. So they kind of settled on using this architecture for the AutoGen library that they have. I can show you what one looks like. Buddy, could you generate a FSM diagram for me using Mermaid.js and do one that approximates the thinking process of the AI Mystic agent brain? So what's great about this, though, is the agents themselves are capable of why are you assigning? No, not you, Chamber. See, there you go. There's a hallucination that happened. I don't want Chamber to be doing anything. So now I can literally go up here and just click this button, and I can force Buddy to answer me. So anyway, the point being, the FSMs, what is going on? They're stuck on this. I'll start by assigning tasks. No, I don't want to do that. Actually, let's just do this. Buddy,
while that's happening, I brought up Payne. We're doing a host swap. We got producer Payne coming. We lost Chamber, but we are back at full strength. Go ahead, Eric.
How you doing, Payne?
Doing well.
All right, there we go. Buddy, don't assign any tasks to anybody. I just want you to do the finite state machine diagram directly. Okay. Sometimes, you got to guide them like your employees. They're not doing it.
Trust me, I get it.
Wanted it.
Working with Chamber for 6 years, you understand that really well. So while we're doing that, I thought where I was going to go next, you kind of started to show, which was the kind of third-party tools. Oh, here you go. Look at that. Yeah.
So it's actually going to build out this entire finite state machine of its thinking process. And this will give you a little bit of an idea of some of the stuff that's going on in its brain.
This is wild.
Crazy.
This is so insane. It's just doing this.
What I want you to imagine is this, guys. Now imagine this thing being able to not only configure the form for an agent, an autonomous agent, but it can actually design and improve its brains using all the latest, greatest, whatever is happening out there. And that's literally what we're doing. The other day, I was telling you about, look how complex this thing is. It just jammed this out in 10 seconds, right? And this is literally what one of these brains look like for our agents. And you can see it, trying to strategize, breaking down tasks, assigning tools to tasks. And then it goes through transitions. This is a query start when it's trying to get to this state to do a tool search to see if it can accomplish the task that it just strategized to do. And it goes through all the things that it needs to do, including user feedback. So this is where the human is in the loop if it has a problem. So if it gets stuck, it's not sure, it's not confident in what its actions are, only then does it come back to the user, to the human. Well, it doesn't have to be a human, by the way. A user to us could be an autonomous agent as well. So it can literally come back and ask for help from another agent with a different model if it gets stuck, for example. So this way you could use smaller agents that cost next to nothing, and they could have big brother agents in the room for the hard problems.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Totally. When we were on a call the other day, you had a good example of this while you were in the car. Can you give that example? I think it's a nice practical example for somebody to understand.
Yeah, shortly after the release of our last brain, we had given that these things were much more stable in their ability to do really long form projects. And so I wanted to give them a test. And the idea that I had was to write a white paper about AI Mystic and all the tech that we built into this thing and how it correlates to the many other research papers that, you know, we've some of which we've included, you know, in what we're doing. So these ideas like a chain of thought, you know, there's entire papers written on it, right? Mix of experts, there's entire papers written on it. So I wanted to write this white paper, and I thought this would be a great test. So I put 4 agents into a room, and this is the task that I gave them. I said, hey guys, I want to write a white paper about AI Mystic, and I want you guys to research existing white papers or existing research papers on RVIX. And I want you to correlate the features that we've built into AI Mystic with papers and then cite them so that people can go read about mix of experts, for example, from our white paper. A lot of this were stuff I'm prepping for when we release this open source. So yeah, at the time I was driving somewhere, and I knew I'd be gone for about an hour. So I just had my phone, and I just pressed that little talk button and talked to them, told them what the project was, and I just let them go. And over the course of the next hour, these 4 agents worked together, writing drafts, doing research, critiquing drafts, rewriting drafts after the critiques, you know, creating an outline so that they could methodically work through the entire project. And then, you know, what came out at the end was a full-blown white paper written by them an hour later with cited references to research papers on RVIX.
It's crazy.
So, yeah.
It's crazy. And so like that leads into, I guess, the other point I wanted to kind of make sure we hammered home before we wrap up, which was, you know, you kind of flashed it on the screen, which you had connections to third-party tools, which kind of is the mind-blowing moment for me, where you really think about, oh, what are the actual use cases for something like this? And when you can connect to any of those outside tools, you can do anything in a sense, right? And which correct. Means you can have it check your email, order your groceries, blah, 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 anything with an API. And the way the world is going with these web crawlers and language models and all this stuff, the entire internet's an API in the next couple of months, right?
Literally is, yeah. And we've actually built the agent brain to be capable of writing the API interfaces.
That's where I was getting to. Right.
That's why, you know, the interfaces that I showed you were the first ones that we had to do manually. But once we had all of the tools within Greenhouse, our, you know, the programmable framework, we can give those tools to the agents. So now the agents are capable of going out, searching the internet, looking at dev docs, pulling the specs for the API, writing the schema themselves, and, you know, and deploying connectors and hooks right into the backend server, and being able to update it without taking down the entire system. So we kind of have these hot swappable interfaces that can be done all autonomously. I don't need a software engineer to do it for us.
It's crazy. And I mean, the implications of that are wild when you think about it. And, you know, if you're listening and you've ever used something like a Zapier or a make.com, right? Like that's essentially how they work without the ability to kind of do this autonomous recursive thing, right? Every one of those modules in make.com or Zapier is, you know, a built out schema connection that's just wrapped in this nice little module for you, and you just plug your stuff in and it goes. So the fact that, you know, essentially what you just said, Eric, is that these things can build them on their own means that eventually AI Mystic will have this library of almost any and every tool. And if it doesn't, it will go out and build it, which, I mean, when you think about what that means, it's pretty crazy. And so I guess two things before we wrap up. One, can you give somebody who may be watching this for the first time about AI agents and autonomous agents and just seeing this demo of a platform, are there any like real world applications that you guys are doing right now with this as tests that somebody could, you could use as an example that could give somebody a better grasp of like, what does this actually mean for somebody or in the real world?
Yeah, I mean, so one of the companies that's a client of ours that we've been, has been a guinea pig for a little while now is a fractional CFO consulting firm called N Perspective. So they're one of the largest in the Southeast. They have a bunch of chief financial officers and controllers that they place with kind of mid-market companies that most of these companies are maybe $10 million to $100 million in revenue. A lot of them, they don't need a $300,000, $500,000 a year CFO, chief financial officer. Excuse me. So this is a very, very niche service that they provide, right? So I came in and the CEO is an old friend of mine, and his name is Russ, and I said, Russ, I'm building this new AI system, and I want to use you guys as a guinea pig because I need real world, what you just asked for, Joe, real world use cases, to make sure that our tools are meeting it. So one of the things that we started on a while back was building a pipeline where we would take a list of prospects, we would use that list and recursively go through every entry in the prospect list, research that prospect, go look at their website, at their socials, that kind of stuff, build a dossier on the prospect, and then use that dossier to write a drip email campaign, and then start sending out emails to them, but using autonomous AI agents to do it. And then if with the email itself was designed by the agents to include a link to a chat room where if the person was at all interested in what they saw in the email, they could click on the link, they'd show up in a chat room, and they could chat with the agent directly. And the agent would, its goal was to book them to my calendar. That's what the whole goal of this thing was, is that qualify them as a possible sales lead, and then book them to Eric's personal calendar, because I was doing the testing. And over that period of time, we closed 7 contracts completely autonomously. And the only thing that I had to do was when my watch went off, it would go off 15 minutes before my meeting, and I didn't even know the meeting was there. So it was just in my calendar. And I'd look at the dossier, basically understand the company in a couple minutes, and then I'd jump on with them and tell them what our services were and try and sell them a contract. So it probably
incredible.
Was, I don't know, $1 million worth of real world, cash in the door, over the life of these contracts.
Yeah, and that's just incredible. And I think
everybody
that
needs it, by the way, kind of there's a dozen companies out there right now that have an entire company built on that workflow. But 100%. For me, it's just a workflow that AI Mystic could accomplish, right? But what I don't want is we decided from day one, we wanted as little as necessary need to train people on how to use AI Mystic. Our goal is to really get rid of the interface unless the human needs something. So if you can't quite keep the entire finite state machine graph in your head, you probably need to see it visually. They don't, right? The agents don't. They don't. That interface ain't for them. They can't see it anyway. It's only for the human. So we're very cognizant of this, and it's the reason why our tagline is beyond the zeros and ones, because for the human, they don't care about how this shit works.
Yeah, so that's the perfect segue to wrap this up. I think based on the chat and the comments, everybody's mind was sufficiently blown, as I expected it would be. And so I just want to walk through really quickly, where people can go to find out more about what you guys are doing. So AIMystic.com, you can go and check out a little more about what Eric and Bloomstack are doing right there beyond the zeros and ones. If you haven't already, you can go down here. You can request your early access because I have a feeling after watching this, you will want to. And then lastly, Eric, I'll let you kind of speak on this. There is a little invest tab here, and I think it is important for you to touch on. So if you want to wrap up with just kind of that piece of it, and then we can get out of here.
Yeah, sure. Well, click that link. We can see it goes to a WeFunder page. So we decided back when we had the cannabis software company. Originally, we actually wanted to kind of open it up and allow. There's a lot of people that like cannabis and are in that industry. So that's actually how we started doing WeFunder. This time around, we're doing it for a different reason. One was we wanted to give our original investors who've been really patient with me, and this whole pivot happened, and there was like darkness for 2 years. So imagine you're one of the investors and you just heard nothing about what's going on with this cannabis software, and so I'm kind of a loyalist, and I wanted them to be able to participate in this too. They still do anyway because they have their original investment. But we're raising $3 million, and I've allocated 600,000 of it to non-accredited investors. So this is anybody that has any interest at all in this kind of stuff, because these days the average folk don't get access to invest in OpenAI. Their minimums for OpenAI, I think, are $250 million for this round.
Yeah, which, by the way, they closed.
I don't got that kind of scratch, guys.
No, me either.
Yeah. So and unless you're best friends with SoftBank, putting in their 500 million, I don't know that you get to ride along very often. So with AI Mystic, we wanted to allocate a piece of this because we're also going to be open sourcing this entire project. So we want to build a community around it, give people, a fighting chance to get in on some of these cutting edge things. You can invest as little as $100. If you're an accredited investor listening to this podcast and you get to us in time, we're doing a Regulation D offering where you can invest directly with Bloomstack, not through the WeFunder platform. But that has minimums, and you have to be an accredited investor.
Yeah, I just want to point out really quickly, if anybody is watching this and is interested in getting involved in the WeFunder, as Eric said, minimum $100. But I think what's super crazy here is the valuation in which you put this out at. $9.5 million in a world where we are seeing, Vapor raise $100 million in the AI space.
A 6-month-old company with 4 employees and a demo.
Right.
A $2.2 billion valuation. That's kind of crazy.
That's what I mean. So the fact that anybody can kind of get involved with this at what I would consider a level in terms of valuation that is, unlike any opportunity you've probably seen in quite a while, I think is just worth pointing out, because if you're paying attention to what these other companies are getting valued at, it's pretty silly in comparison. So I think that's a testament to what you mentioned about kind of giving people an opportunity, open sourcing it, and all of that stuff. So I think it's just important to call attention to, because it's not like you're asking people to jump in here and get in for at $1 billion valuation, right? So there is a lot of upside to this if you are interested in getting involved. So, but I definitely wanted to make sure we touched on that, because I think it is a really great opportunity for people if you're interested in this. Obviously, you've seen the demo here live in action today, so it is not vaporware. What about the early access?
Frankly, if it's not for, it's not for everybody. Investing in startups is not for everybody, but it's probably one hell of a gift that you can give to your friend that does invest in companies, letting them know about AI Mystic and Bloomstack.
Absolutely. I've already let a couple know myself. So, and now all of these fine folks listening to the podcast. So the last piece, there's that early access. Eric, when can people expect this to start rolling out? Because I have a feeling based on this, you've got a couple people that were interested in signing up at the very least.
Yeah, we have, there's been a handful of people that we've given access to the system over the last few months. We have our first production release is going to be coming out in November. So we're just a little over a month away from that. The first people that are going to get access, I want to set expectations that, correctly. It's unlikely that we're going to be able to give everybody that's signing up on early access access in November, but we are planning for a more general beta launch Q1 of 2025. So, the sucks to have to wait sometimes, but we are giving priority to our investors. So, the insiders, they always kind of get first dibs usually.
So find $100 in your closet is what it sounds like. That's awesome. Eric, this was really great. Before we let you go, I just want to get a little reaction from Payne. Payne, you're somewhat new to the AI space. You've been kind of getting your hands dirty, doing some building, which is really cool, using things like Cursor, which is, an awesome starting point for somebody who doesn't have a lot of experience doing this. Absolutely. And then you see something like this. How do you feel having watched this now for 90 minutes?
My mind is blown. Like Suarez said, take my money, please. Like, this is it truly is amazing. And I mean, we even got on that call for a little bit talking about it after last Thursday, and you were describing it, but seeing it, man, it's something different to watch how it works and how well. So Eric, man, I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing with us and letting us kind of be the exclusive ones to drop it. It's been a treat for sure.
Yeah, I got lucky finding these guys.
Go down in history now. Yeah.
There you go. Hopefully. Yeah. There you go. We'll always be the first podcast that AI Mystic did. That's fantastic. No. Eric, where can people find you outside of the website?
I'm on LinkedIn. There's, I'm on the socials. Eric B. Delisle is usually, so it's at Eric B. Delisle on X, Eric B. Delisle on LinkedIn, Instagram. You can email me directly, eric@bloomstack.com, ERIC.
Sweet. And maybe, or maybe not, you'll be talking to Bud instead of Eric. Who knows?
Very likely, but Bud knows, if it's a human, let me know if they're interesting.
Fantastic. Eric, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for the demo. This was awesome. Thank you for the awesome education on just how this stuff works. I think it was super valuable. We appreciate your time. And that is going to do it for us today. So until next time, keep the mic hot.
What have I done? What have I become? I can't describe this. This is my mid-mic crisis.
Geesh.
Hold on. I'm still streaming.